So the DECIEM Slowvember sale has become a little bit of a tradition in the skincare community. They've been doing it for several years now, and really the whole concept around it is that everybody that enjoys The Ordinary, NIOD or other DECIEM brands, they have a whole month to shop slowly. So the whole point was trying to get rid of the pressure tactics or sort of one day only sales events, so that you could more thoughtfully construct a routine. The sale is actually being a little bit extended this time around, so I think it will finish on December 7th. This video here is just going to be a rundown of my top 10 picks from DECIEM, focused on The Ordinary with a couple of NIOD inclusions as well. I'll also just mention this video is not sponsored. I have done ads for DECIEM in the past, but this is not part of any content agreement or anything like that. DECIEM is just one of those brands that I think has so much connection to the skincare community. So it's just the brand that I like to focus on regardless, because even before social media, I feel like many of us grew up with the brand, and really they were the one brand that introduced me to niacinamide. I didn't even know what that was before them. So there's maybe just a level of kinship where it's always fun to see what they've got going on. Before I get into the top 10 list, I just wanted to mention as well that DECIEM are doing like bonus products each week leading up to December 7th. So for example, but if you buy something between November 8th and 14th, The Ordinary will give you a free 30ml moisturizer. NIOD is giving out a free photography fluid. Between November 15th and 21st, The Ordinary is doing a 15ml soothing and barrier support serum for free, while NIOD is giving out modulating glucosides. Between November 22nd and 27th, The Ordinary is giving out a 15ml hyaluronic acid plus B5, and I think there's free shipping as well. And NIOD will be giving out a multi-molecular hyaluronic complex. And then the last sort of bonus week is November 29th to December 7th, where The Ordinary is giving out a free pouch and I think free shipping as well. And NIOD will be giving out a free Survival Zero. Now there are certain spending requirements. Some products will be excluded, so I'll throw up on screen the details that I have, but just within those shopping weeks, just ensure that you're reading the terms and conditions correctly so that it captures the bonus and that it falls within what you're planning to spend anyway. So I think it's quite cool that The Ordinary and NIOD have released their full schedule, so again you can plan around the week that will suit you best. Now within this month, I do know that both The Ordinary and NIOD have some new releases coming up, or I only know of two. One is a new cleanser from NIOD that I think is like an oil-based cleanser, and then The Ordinary is releasing their Volufiline serum, which is like a plumping serum. Volufiline I have tried and I'm currently going through like a trial process for it. The NIOD cleanser I haven't used, but both of those products don't appear on the list because they're technically not out yet, although I think the NIOD cleanser is coming out in the first week of November, so probably by the time this video goes live, that cleanser will be live on the site. That's a super long introduction, so let me get straight into the list. And these products do not appear in any particular order, I just wrote them down as they came to mind. So the first one that I have to mention is the new NIOD Mist, and that's the Superoxide Dismutase 3 Enzyme Mist, which I've already filmed a dedicated video about, which I'll link that below if you want to learn more. But I just think this mist is so well designed and significantly better than their previous formula. It's a multifaceted approach to antioxidant protection, where they've included actives that have like a first line defense. They have actives that kind of re-energize or recycle used antioxidants. And then they even have actives in here that don't even begin to protect the skin until they're actually like activated by enzymes. So I feel like there's just a lot going on in a very sequential way that's allowing for more of a reservoir effect in terms of its antioxidant potential. So how they've made this product just makes tons of sense to me. Texturally, it's extremely light. It just feels like water. I have discussed before how I really don't like the spray nozzle. It's very aggressive and it sort of saturates the skin too much. So if there's one thing that I could change, I wish this would be more of a mist instead of like a spray. But in terms of the actual formula itself, there's really not much to comment on. I'm a big fan and I'm definitely planning to buy this one myself. In fact, I'm sure by the time this video goes live, I would have already bought some stuff. So I might throw up on screen what my personal order was so you can see what I've decided to buy. Now, I will also mention that if the NIOD Mist is a little bit out of budget, because it is a little bit because it is a bit pricier. I do think that The Ordinary's multi-antioxidant serum is also like a super good composition. The NIOD one just comes across a little bit more high-tech and modern, but The Ordinary one is really well-rounded with an excellent price point as well. Now, the next product I'll mention is the Sulfur powder to cream concentrate, or the Sulfur 10% powder to cream concentrate, which is the little jar of 10% sulfur. I think this is a super inspired product with a really unique application, and I really love that it uses a functional level of sulfur at 10%. That amount can be a little bit aggressive when I think it's used across the whole face, but as a spot treatment, which is really what this is designed to be, it does help like bring down the severity of pimples much quicker. And I think this type of product does especially work well for like inflamed or angry pimples, or breakouts. So if you have like a cluster or one or two, particularly like one or two pissed off eruptions, then applying a little bit of this sulfur powder on top, at least for me, really calms things down super quickly. And I also like that because it sort of visibly reduces oil, it just makes everything feel a lot cleaner and like less greasy. Now, the way I like to apply this is I actually put the powder on my thumb and then press it together with the index finger, and then I break the capsules that way. So you end up with a little bit of product here and a bit of product there, and then you apply. And I've just found that to be the easiest way to control it, but I know some people just go straight in on their face. It's whatever works for you. Next up is the Soothing and Barrier Support Serum from The Ordinary, also known as the Pink Serum. This has been a long-standing favorite of mine that I rotate in and out of my routine. Often I'll use like Due Deliverance, and then I'll jump to The Ordinary and then go back and forth. At its core, I consider this to be like a boosted niacinamide serum. And I think it also takes some inspiration from NIOD modulating glucosides. So it has like a bunch of soothing, antioxidant, hydrating ingredients just to help with barrier repair and barrier support. I also like that the texture of this serum is a little bit more moisturizing than a lot of others from The Ordinary, but it's definitely still light enough to layer. I do think it would probably benefit from a pump mechanism instead of the dropper, but I guess that's just the way the brand is. And as a general note, I think it would be fun if they actually could find like a pink pump for it, because I find this serum to be a little bit underrated, and I think maybe people would notice it more if it had a more eye-catching like external packaging, even though the serum itself is pink, which in itself is quite interesting. In a nutshell, I consider this to be a serum designed to encourage calm, balanced, like fortified skin, and it has ingredients in it to sort of calm physical sensations, sort of like itching and scratching, and like even like stinging and burning, while also like supplying the skin with additional biomimetic actives just to help with like long-term resilience. From what I can see, NIOD modulating glucosides again is that little bit more modern and maybe more focused on like direct irritation. I think the included glucosides are a little bit more focused. The Ordinary borrows a little bit of that product design, but then turns it into a slightly more simplified, niacinamide focused approach. So potentially you could even use Soothing and Barrier in the morning, maybe modulating glucosides at night or vice versa to kind of get the best of both worlds, because I do think niacinamide has a significant role in overall skin health. So it makes sense to me to see it in a barrier serum. Next up is GF 15% solution. This is a super interesting product because I have a bit of a split mind about it and a split mind about growth factors overall. I was super excited to see it come out, super excited to use it. I think it's a really well-designed serum, but I would say that if I could choose or have a preference, I tend to lean towards peptides as a focus, just because I think their theoretical mechanism of action or their ability to penetrate the skin is maybe more likely to exert a benefit. But I've still always been curious about growth factors, so I was really happy to see an affordable serum that highlights growth factors. And what I really like about The Ordinary's product design is that it's using bioidentical human sequences, but the ingredients that have been used are from biotechnology plant molecular farming. Although The Ordinary doesn't do this themselves, this is purchased from an ingredient supplier, just the composition is quite interesting and new and modern. Historically, when we've looked at growth factors, especially in the really expensive serums, they're often human derived or animal derived. I guess I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that. There are many questions around composition of those growth factors, like what exactly is being extracted, what exactly is left over around just the growth factors, what is the purity like, is there potential for contamination, and because we're dealing with actual biological activity, that's a little bit icky to think about. And also then just the overall stability and like why those growth factors is like stable and surviving in a serum. And then of course there's the whole argument, which people have DM'd me, for example, where plant growth factors don't work because humans aren't plants. But what I would say to that is this serum doesn't directly use just plant growth factors. That's not what's in here. It uses plant expressed human growth factors. So from what I can gather, the recognition whether it's human or this plant derived version should be really similar, because it's not a combination of the growth factors found in plants. They just use plants to make sort of synthetic human identical versions. Though this is a level of science that's definitely beyond my scope of full understanding. So if you have any additional information to give, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe not specifically like from brand information, because obviously brands are going to say what they want to say for their own product. But if you know the general science behind it, especially synthetic human growth factors versus actually human derived, I'd love to know a little bit more about that and whether or not it matters. Because to me, and I've spoken about this in sweet chemistry videos, is where something that has been intentionally designed or intentionally extracted, where the purity is more controlled, that is just something that's more appealing. And of course, from a sustainability, from an ethics perspective, plants in a biofactory just make a lot more sense. But with all of that said, there's still another elephant in the room, and that's that growth factors are really large molecules. So whether they're human-derived, animal-derived, plant-expressed, from what I understand, their actual molecular size is still very large. So there are many questions around their inherent ability to even get anywhere in the skin. So there are a few things around this. There is, from what I understand, there is some potential of like a signaling concept, a little bit like a peptide, where growth factors apply topically, even though they're not entirely getting through the skin barrier. That they could be signaling or leading to a cascade of signals that then encourages some of these other skin components to function better. And so part of the other reason why I really like the concept of this, the Ordinary serum, is that the other suggested kind of mechanism of action is that growth factors are essentially creating like a moisturizing film on the skin, and that's what's leading to a little bit of the enhanced like hydration moisturization. So in a product category like this, where I'm not entirely confident in their ability to even work the way they're supposed to, something like the Ordinary, where they're using a thoughtful production design, makes sense. A really nice price point makes sense. So at the end of the day, if you are just getting sort of a hydrated, humectant benefit out of this, you're at least not investing too much. And then if it happens to be doing other stuff beyond the general surface level, then that's great. And again, you're still not investing too much, but the actual texture, sensory appeal, and the way that it makes skin feel more bouncy, I think is a real impact that this serum is able to achieve. Next product is the Saccharomyces Ferment 30% Milky Toner, and I was really excited to see the Ordinary come out with a Milky Toner. Obviously, that style of toner texture has become very popular the last few years. And this is a true prep step product where it does also have subtle sort of refining, very mildly exfoliating properties. And I would consider it like a proper skin conditioning treatment. It achieves this by using a fermented extract that has a standardized content of NAG. And NAG, from what I understand, is actually a signature Estee Lauder ingredient. So it's pretty cool to see it come into the Ordinary at a more affordable price point. And beyond the ferment extract, it's also boosted by squalane. So you do get a little bit more of this like nourishing kick to it, but I haven't found that it ever feels like too heavy or cloying or like it interferes with product layering. And although it's sort of positioned as an exfoliating toner, I do consider it specifically more like gently refining over time, and I've never had issues using it with other products or it like causing conflicts with like retinoids or other acids, for example. But it's also the type of thing that if you have more easily sensitized skin, you'd probably still be okay to use it relatively regularly, with most people being able to use it daily with no issue. And keeping into the prep step, the next product is the multi-active delivery essence. In a nutshell, I would consider this to be like a hydration primer. It's not as much of a direct conditioning treatment as Milky Toner is, but it does have skin softening properties. I think it does help things permeate better, and there's particular evidence for enhancing the effects of niacinamide, for example. And I would actually say that this is probably the closest sort of affordable alternative to the SK2 facial treatment essence, because the way those products make my skin feel, the way they sort of permeate and give this sort of softly plump feeling is really similar. The Ordinary Delivery Essence is based around a kind of interesting ingredient, which is both a humectant and surfactant. And surfactants generally just help disrupt the barrier temporarily to allow things get in. So this is truly prepping the skin for other products to be placed on top. But the essence overall also functions by itself, where it has actual proper hydrating humectants in it too. So it is both like a delivery essence as well as its own hydrating essence. And that's why I think it works well as a skin softening product. One potential downside that I did want to mention is that I have heard from a few people that they experience like a soaping or foaming effect. So when you apply, it sort of starts to turn white on the skin. I guess this does make sense because it contains a surfactant as a lead ingredient, which is what's found in cleansers. So I think if the product is agitated a bit, then you might see this foaming action maybe appear a little bit more commonly than what you might see if you're maybe just pressing it in. So if you do dislike this effect on the skin, which I think in any case will probably dissipate pretty quickly and doesn't affect the functionality of it, but maybe just switching around the gesture of application can help. Next up is the Glycolipid Cream Cleanser, and this I think is probably my favorite cleanser from The Ordinary, and I do love cream cleansers in general. I kind of think cream cleansers are still an underrated skincare category, and I'm happy to see them gaining a little bit more traction. I do understand why they're a little bit trickier to integrate because they probably don't clean as well as a general gel or foam. They're probably not as good at removing makeup as like an oil or balm. They're kind of a little bit of both. But because they're a little bit of both, they tend to work really well for like general skin days, light makeup days, sunscreen days, while also adding moisture or respecting the skin barrier maybe a little bit better than the other products can. I would say The Ordinary's version is a little bit more refreshing feeling, so it leans a little bit more like gel cream than it does like fully emollient cream, but I still find it moisturizing enough to where it's not stripping at all. I usually start this one on dry skin, massage it in, add a little bit of water to help it spread and emulsify, and then rinse off. So one of the main things I enjoy about this is that it allows a lot of playtime on the skin where you can really like massage it in properly. So you can get like this thorough one and done cleanse if you wanted. I'm not sure that it would successfully remove like heavier glam makeup, but I think as a general day-to-day product, it functions really well. Next product is Pycnogenol 5%, which is a very like deep cut, sort of niche product for The Ordinary, and just a dedicated simple serum essentially focused on the one ingredient in a propandiol base. If you followed me for a while, you'll know that I had a period of time where I was absolutely obsessed with using it all of the time. Part of the reason is I went to Toronto to visit The Ordinary HQ, and a lot of the people that I spoke to there, I asked them what their most underrated product is, and many of them said Pycnogenol. So as soon as I got home, I bought it immediately and started integrating it. Over the last few months, I sort of fell off using it because I emptied a bottle and then I just forgot to open a new one. But creating this list reminded me of that fact. So actually last night I opened another bottle to start integrating it again. It is in a propandiol base, so using it by itself feels quite oily, and that's not my favorite texture or sensation. And what The Ordinary told me is that propandiol is actually a water-based ingredient. So if you do want to mix this into something else, it's best mixed into another watery serum. And I've loved using Pycnogenol in B Gel by Build. That combination is really nice. And I guess the whole reason you might be interested in integrating it is because Pycnogenol is known as a really powerful antioxidant, but also has the benefit where it's thought to recycle oxidized vitamins C and E. So potentially if you're somebody that uses vitamin C in the morning, adding a Pycnogenol with it or like in another product in that same routine maybe would make that vitamin C a bit more stable and function better for longer. It's also thought to potentially have anti-inflammatory effect, especially around its supporting capillary walls, and therefore potentially helping with the visibility of skin redness, and in itself may also help act as a bit of a UV booster. So to me this makes a lot of sense integrating it in the morning just as an additional antioxidant step. We're going into sort of spring summer here in Australia, and that's where I tend to focus in a little bit more on antioxidants to really help sunscreen. So my sort of thought process moving forward is to use the NIOD Superoxide mist, then mix a little bit of Pycnogenol in with my B gel, and then I've got the Naturium vitamin C. So I feel like I'm like loading myself up with antioxidants, really hoping to protect my skin from environmental aggressors. Second to last product is the NIOD Copper Amino Isolate Serum, which is very much a flagship flagship product for NIOD. And this is one of the first products I ever used from DECIEM because NIOD actually came out before The Ordinary. And I would say it's kind of like the core philosophy of what DECIEM is all about. And maybe if Brandon or even Nicola had their way, NIOD would be the main brand. But it's just ultimately the public chose, and The Ordinary ended up being more popular, probably because of the price points are so much more attractive. But NIOD is where they get to play around, flex a little bit, and really focus on the more innovative side of skincare. Now, this is a peptide product, of course, that is focused more specifically on copper peptides. And I would say very simply, it's designed for overall skin rejuvenation. But interestingly, it's already using a bunch of ingredients that are starting to gain a bit more traction in the industry, all around like senescence and cellular longevity and those sorts of topics. Those ingredients are already in here, and they have been in here for several years. So you can sort of see that it's just now that this serum is starting to become relevant to the point where it's matching the focus of other brands in the market, but it's been out for so long at this point. There's also a peptide in here that's supposed to mimic the effect of retinoids. And then there's a concept in skin biology called dermal anchoring. And that basically relates to how sort of tight, taut, and firm the skin feels. So I would never suggest that like a topical product is physically able to lift the skin. And I don't think like DECIEM or NIOD would really suggest that either. But I would say this type of product and like peptides as an overall category, they're really about stimulating existing skin components. So we're not talking about like physical lifting, but just about optimizing the potential and like stimulating structural components so that their decline is being delayed, or like boosting the activity so that hopefully skin is able to bounce back better by inherently repairing itself. And so I think this is probably where this serum differs a little bit to other peptide products on the market that might be leaning towards like the appearance of lines and wrinkles more specifically. I would say this NIOD copper product is more about like the overall integrity or like the structural support. And potentially if you're somebody that has the type of skin that really can't handle retinoids, this could be a good product to explore as an alternative. And the last product on my top 10 is actually not skincare. It's the new book from The Ordinary called Ingredients. I would say the older I get, the more I start to value just like beautiful objects or interesting knickknacks, and just having things like clutter around my house or room or whatever it is. And that could be because I grew up playing The Sims and also focused on building houses and ensuring every room had clutter, that now I feel like just having things like small things that bring little like moments of joy are really important to have around. And so as a skincare enthusiast, I really can't think of anything much better than a book about ingredients or a book about skincare, and having it come from a brand that really pioneered the skincare community. I was actually surprised at how meaningful that was, because I consider it to be like a true souvenir. Like the book is nothing crazy. It's ultimately just a collection of quite simple photography, very much in line of what you see on The Ordinary's website. There's like ingredient glossaries, descriptions of just different skin factors, but there's also just something really nice about having a book that sort of is celebrating laboratories, celebrating synthetic ingredients, just skincare design, and in a way that's sort of a cross between like an ingredient glossary and a coffee table book. So it's sort of beautiful, functional, simple and interesting, lots of shelf appeal, nice to see, very much summarizes The Ordinary. So especially because we're in this holiday period, if you maybe have a skin enthusiast in your life, you want to gift yourself a little bit something other than another serum, I think the book is actually a really thoughtful thing to have. And I don't know if it will be around like long term, but I would personally regret not owning it in 5 to 10 years, because it seems like such a good summary of everything The Ordinary has brought to skincare as a whole. Anyway, that's my whole DECIEM top 10 list for this Slowvember. Thank you very much for watching. Please do let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.